everybody. Welcome to Down and Dirty tonight. John Stranley had to work a little late tonight. He's hopefully going to get off in time to catch up with us later. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Slama Enterprises, Trip Downing, Eric Wettenkamp, and Front Street Toys for sponsoring the show again. And we've got Dustin Hook and Craig Gladwig on the show. Tonight's subject is naming your tractor and why you named it that. And please, anybody that has a good story, put it in here, because somehow we're going to get everybody's story, and the best story we're going to kind of figure it out, and they're going to get a $100 Amazon gift card or something like that. Does that sound cool, guys?
Yep, sounds good.
Sounds good. Craig?
Yep, works for me.
Can we hear you?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear you guys again. What the heck?
What the heck?
It's you, Greg. I hear him loud and clear.
I'm going to have to
turn your hearing aids up.
Like it's just you and
Ryan,
I,
do
Dustin.
I log in again, go out and come back in? I can't hear these guys. Start it here, Dustin. If you can hear me start something, I'm going to try and log in again. That usually works.
Alrighty. Yeah. I guess I'll start off with the subject of of naming the tractor and start off with my dad's tractor, T-Bone. He started in 1988. He bought a tractor from George Redmond down in South Central Iowa, and it was actually between T-Bone and playing hooky back then, both. And he chose T-Bone because he used to raise a lot of cattle and just liked the simple name of T-Bone. And my mom, she was a pretty decent artist. She drew some pictures of some designs that he was going to possibly put on the side shield of T-Bone, and he decided to keep it simple with just the name. And it was mainly because he was a large beef producer. And I guess when I decided to not so much retire the name, but make my own name for the new tractor, I did it kind of in honor of him, just because I felt like that was his, and I wanted to do my own. But looking back, I almost wish I would have stayed with T-Bone. And I like my new tractor, obviously, but there was so many good memories with that one. And even my kids now, they're 6 and 8, and they talk about T-Bone all the time, and look at the pictures of their grandpa driving it and me driving it and whatever. And it was a great amount of years there. I started driving in 2000, was the Badger State Rookie of the Year in 2000. And that was basically what growing up through tractor pull was with T-Bone. So Foolish Pleasure, Gary Brinkmeyer, we used to go with him all the time. And then when I first met Craig, he was pulling a tractor named Madness. Craig, if you want to go into some of the stories of the names of your tractors over the years, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, the Madness tractor actually was already named before I got involved. Brian Look, actually the first Pro Stock Turbo we ever bought, we bought from your dad.
Okay. And
it was a 3.7 Pro Stock Charger, $1,500.
Sure. Back in the good old days.
Right. And Brian, who owned that tractor, it's actually his mother's name was Marge, and he called it Marge's Madness, and only us, the small group, because she absolutely hated the pulling tractor. Just despised it. So he named it that way because it got under her skin, and it was what it was. But I think 2000 and let's see, that was like 96. I bought that tractor, and pulled that, and then 2006, I actually sold that tractor and Mike and Matt Castor, and believe it or not, it's in its entire. I think the Profab transmission is taken out of it, but they just kept it as a memory, and sitting up in their shed. So that they still have the whole tractor still sitting up there.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. So I don't know what they're going to do with it. You know, they're working on their own to try to get that out this year. I know that, but then, you know, unfortunately, 2006, my oldest son, Bryce, was diagnosed with bone cancer, and we actually sold the Madness tractor, and you know, life changes, priorities changed, and it wasn't about, you know, tractor pulling and that anymore. And 2 years after that went by, and Bryce was heading in the right direction with his treatments and everything, and we kind of had a family meeting because, like we all know, you know, we have our biological families, but right on top of that is the Badger State family. And you know, I was so I was speechless, and that doesn't happen very often. The pullers, you know, they had the benefit for Bryce and all that, and I just knew. I actually believe it or not, when Bryce got sick and we sold the tractor, we have a local racetrack at Sheboygan, the Plymouth, where we used to have our tractor pulls there, and I thought that I could just buy a winged sprint car and replace tractor pulling and race cars. And I did that for a year. And I tell you what, I am not crazy enough to drive a sprint car. I thought I was. I thought, you know, how hard can it be? And I give those guys a lot of credit. And it was not enjoyable to me. It was I'm not a roller coaster guy, and that thing I couldn't hardly see straight. The straightaways, I'd finally get my vision back, and you'd go into the turns there and seeing cross-eyed for the next 3/4 of a lap. It just was no fun to me.
Huh. I didn't know you did
Well,
that.
they must have had to shoehorn you into the seat, right?
Oh, well, the joke was, you just better come. If I ever flip this thing, you better come with the jar of Vaseline and the jaws of life, because that's the only way I was getting out of that thing. So,
Right.
but yeah, you know, it I guess it served the purpose, but you know, more importantly, it made me believe, you know, realize how much I missed tractor pulling. And so we kind of had a family meeting, and everything was going good with Bryce, and we decided to come back out, and that's when components were first getting going, and got a hold of Wildmans and Anglers, and that's when we built our first component tractor. And at the time, I really didn't know. I knew I didn't want to call it Madness anymore, and I didn't know what we wanted to call it. But you know, sometimes you just have these thoughts in the middle of the night, and never giving up seemed real fitting. And
Yep.
you know, if you ever look at the side shields, a lot of thought went into the side shields. There's a big heart in the background, and then a big set of hands. And actually, boy, I can't. What's that company, Greg, that used to paint the side shields for Wildmans?
Psychology.
Psychology. Yep. And we went back and forth for months, and you know, they airbrushed my hands on there, and it's got the ribbon for childhood cancer, and you know, nothing makes my heart warm like sharing that story with families and kids, and you know, even adults with cancer. There seems to be just a common theme. Last year, Amy and my son were talking with a gentleman up at Toma, and he actually told us that he was diagnosed with cancer and he was not going to fight. And then we saw him at a second tractor pull, and after he heard our story, or Bryce's story, I don't want to take any credit for Bryce, but after they heard Bryce's story, he decided he was going to start fighting. And we talk. We don't talk often, but we still talk. And he's going through treatments, and you know, he in his head, and our story, it kind of gave him a new look on life, and it kind of drove him to get treatment. And I believe treatment's going well for him. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's good, and that's got to make you feel good. Just something like that, giving a guy motivation to do it, right?
Right. Even if that's the only guy that it ever happens to, that's enough for me.
Sure.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
You know,
that's a great story.
Yeah.
I'll never forget you had that a benefit auction for Bryce there, and a bunch of tractor pullers showed up. We were there. And I'll never forget Gerald Gerlach bought something, and the auction, I mean, nobody bid him up. And he just kept going
He did.
More.
Yeah.
Nope. He bid it up to, I believe $5,000 was the number. I don't know for sure, but I believe that was the number. And it was whoever else was bidding against him was out at $1,500.
Right.
And Gerald just wanted to do something, and he did that. I'll never forget that.
It was always a neat. I always felt guilty because so many people stepped up and volunteered and donated, and the amount of gifts that would just show up at the front door, and they didn't want to know who, they didn't want us to know who they were. And for a long time, the majority of my life, I've never thought about writing a complete stranger a check for $1,000, let alone $500. And Packer tickets and video game sets, and I mean, it just was unbelievable. And at that benefit, that was the only time I could say thank you to those that didn't want to be recognized. And I understand there's a lot of us that do things that it's not for the recognition, but as a dad, and you just want to shake somebody's hand, give them a hug, and say thank you, because they don't know how special and how meaningful those contributions. And it changed how our family donates and helps, and forever it'll be that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good story. Yeah.
Definitely a story
absolutely.
to remember.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. And now my biggest battle is I'd love to get Bryce in the seat of that tractor once, and it was built in honor and memory of him, and he's doing well. He's 26, cancer free, and he had a little repair on his ankle, but that's minor compared to everything else that he battled in his life. And
at least his ankle's still there.
At least his ankle's still there. And if I could see him, I mean, my career would be complete if I could get him to go down that track one time. I don't care if he hits the barrier. I really don't. I just want him to get that thing lit and get down the track and experience. How do you explain to your kids that have never done it, or even to a fan, the experience of driving a pro stock? There's nothing like it.
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely one in a million type feeling. So, and if you could, I remember when my dad wanted me to get on the seat for the first time, and I was a little hesitant as well. I mean, I was excited and wanted to, but it was some big shoes to fill, and I'm sure Bryce feels the same way. And it's I hope he gets on there someday too, because once he does, you'll never drive again, I'm sure.
And and in a weird way, I'm kind of okay with that some days. I still like to do it, but my daughter, she's 16 now, and she wants to take that down the track, and I don't struggle. I struggle putting somebody on a tractor that has 5,000 horse. If everything goes right, it's fairly easy to drive. It hooks right, it hooks left, you crank the tires. I mean, everybody has seen that. That's the most common mistake that you make, is you're cranking on them tires while the front end's in the air. But with technology and everything, I can put some of those AirPods or earbuds, whatever you want to call them, in their ears, and anybody that drove one can sit on the sidelines and talk them through it without ever sitting in the seat.
Sure.
Is my thought, anyways.
Right. It happened so quick, though. Going down the track. Power steering. You had to put power steering on our tractors right now because there's so much weight up front. You can't turn them.
Right.
And now it used to be I could feel it, but now with this power steering, you can't. I like driving around the pits with it, but I don't like it on the track.
You don't like the power steering on the track?
No, I don't. Because I do turn it, and I look and I got to straighten these out again. I do it. My kids tell me all the time. Everybody else tells me, you're turning the tires a little bit too much.
Yep. Yep. I like the air ride that we put on the tractor a couple of years ago, because you can actually feel the lift and do a little throttle management to not burn them tires off so fast. And that part was really good. But I never thought about the tires. I just figure the front end goes up and keep the tires straight. I mean, I kind of have it, I don't know, 10 to 2 is all my hand really ever moves on that steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're supposed to put it at 6, and then you won't do that, is what I've been told.
Right.
But I just never do that. So.
Right.
No, me either. I never been able to put it on the bottom. I always have it on the top as well. On same deal, it's 10 and 2, and I found myself getting in the turning the wheel a lot more, I think, now than I used to with before it was power steering, you know. But
Yep.
But the T-bone, the front end never hit the ground, so I never had to worry about it, even if I did have to turn, you know.
Right. That's very true.
You
You have any parts left, Dustin, of your old tractor?
I do.
I mean, as far as side fields or anything?
Yeah, I actually have all of the hoods. Just all the front nose cone, the side shields, and the top hoods. I'm actually in the process of building a 1256 tractor right now, and it'll have the rear end and differential that was in the T-bone, as well as some other little parts. But I'll never get rid of the hoods. You know, I have them up on a shelf in the shop, and
Okay.
I'll always keep those. So
what class are you building that for?
It's going to be like a 466 tractor. Just
Gotcha.
I had some frame rails, a rear end housing, profab, stuff like that laying around, and I always wanted to build my own hoods out of aluminum. So I'm building some 56 series aluminum hoods. I made it a little wider than stock, you know, and I'm probably just doing it to sell. I'm not going to keep it and drive it or anything. But I thought this was a way to get rid of some old stuff I had laying around, you know, and it's coming along pretty good, actually. So it won't be out this year, but
I'm sure Greg and I have some extra parts on our shelves too. If you need something, I guarantee you we can just about build a second tractor.
Parts all over the place, that's for sure.
Right.
So what about you? Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I was going to say, the first time you drove, Dustin, you said it was in Sauk.
Yeah.
And you were nervous. Tell them what happened. Your dad ran between your tires and leg. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. So I first time I drove was in Sauk City. I believe it was 2000. Might have been 99. I don't think I drove again. I think it was 99 because the first time I drove, I didn't make it down the track, which was Sauk, because the injection pump stuck. And normal farm kid instincts, once it starts fluttering, you know, that was back in the old pedal clutch days. What do? You push in the clutch and you pull back the throttle. Well, I push in the clutch and pull back on the throttle, and the throttle did not come back. So there I sit going wide open about mid-track in Sauk one night. And, I pulled Dad told me beforehand to pull the air shot off and the fuel dump and all that. Well, it didn't shut off. So dad come running up there, and it still had the stock key on it that would have been on a 66 series tractor. And that was just to kill the, little power that you did have on the tractor back then. But he broke that key off, and he sliced his arm open from that key breaking off, just from up there trying to reach to grab the kill switches and all that. And, finally, it did shut down. It didn't blow apart or anything, but that was, my pants weren't full after that. I can tell you that. But it was pretty wild. Yeah, Matt Castor said it was 99. He was flagging, but story I guess I'll try to remember forever. And then of course, the first year I got out my new tractor, Brandon Coates took it up to Mazomanie, actually wins the class, and the pump sticks on him. So we've had some stories with the pump sticking over the years. And it's just one of those things, that can happen. And hopefully it doesn't happen on your first time driving. And it happened to me the first time driving, and it happened to Brandon the first time driving my new tractor. So, it's definitely keeps you on your toes, So I always thought, I think it'd be cool to invent something that, I know there's things to shut it down, but you're doing it all on, bodily function type thing with pulling stuff with your arms and hands. But if there was ever a, over rev type sensor on there to going over 7,000 or whatever you want to set it at 6,500 RPMs, that it would kind of do it on its own type thing. But I know that's easier said than done, but sometimes I feel like with these new computers and stuff we have, I feel like, that might be an option, but it does have some lag time of how long it actually will sit there and run before, it'll actually shut down. But, that was definitely, something I'll remember forever. And hopefully don't happen again.
Right. I think the pumps have gotten better since them days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. For sure.
I remember like Jeff and Jerry at Hypermax, they'd always tell you when you got a brand new pump, he says, if it's going to stick, it's going to stick the first time out. And I know we did that too. We put years ago when the Sigma pumps were first coming out, we put one on, and very first pull, it stuck the rack wide open, and it run away and put a hole in the side of the block. Nothing makes you sicker than having that happen to you.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
I think what we found after the fact was that was back when you had a fan and a radiator, and Dad used to put a rubber mat over top of he had a short radiator, so he thought it would suck cool air in above that mat. Well, little did he know that the fan, we found out later that when the fan's sitting there going wide open, it was blowing up on that mat, and then the air flapper would not close because it would hit that mat. So, it was just some old farmer engineering, he thought was making things better, and we took that mat off there after that, so.
Right.
One of those, that was the year Dad always said that pump was on the airplane more than it was on the tractor, because it come from Columbus, Ohio, and he was next day airing it out and all the time, so.
Yep.
But
well, so, I guess we're talking about tractor names today. We can move on to my story, and I hope other guys can text in or something stories. But T8 Tomcat was pretty easy. Dirk Dury actually named it, but you ride around the tractor, farming all day long. I had my phone. I had a list of like 40 different names for it. Anything that would pop on my head, I had a sheet on my sheets on my phone. I would put it in there. None of them made sense. I didn't like any of them. And all of a sudden Dirk said, T8 Tomcat. That's what it is. But Thunder Clutch, I think I've told this story already. I was probably 92, and I was at home eating breakfast after milking cows, and I was watching the Looney Tunes. Scrooge McDuck was on TV, and his helicopter was called the Thunder Clutch Whirligig. So, and Gary Scott always said, you dumped that clutch, you crazy bastard, and the front end comes in the air. Well, it was always over in a pull in Arlington where they didn't measure your drawbar height. So I'd crank it up to 24 inches, and get as high as I could and put all the weight in the front end, and you'd take off the front end, would go straight in the air, and you go down the track, and it'd settle in after a while. But that's where I got Thunder Clutch from. Okay. So cool. That's a name that, I don't think the boys never want to change it. They have never told me they want to change it, but I hope, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. If T8 wouldn't have come up, what was the next best option that you were going to name your tractor?
Oh, it was something to do with Chris. What's the name of the singer? Chris it's the Country Music Jesus, a sheep there among standing the wolves, because it'd be only New Holland. Right. It was something to them lines, it was going to be pictures of red ones and green ones there, but then a blue one standing tall.
There you go.
It was something like that, but it just got to be too much. So, I didn't go with that. Eric Church. It's a song from Eric Church, not Chris. Eric Church's song. Country Music Jesus, it came in that one.
Yep.
So that I was there, you just think about all that stuff and how you could make it work, and that made a cool side shield or something you thought, but I ended up just going with the T8 Tomcat.
Yep.
So, but some other names I've always thought were cool was Slow Ride, back in the day. Terry Blackburn, that's got to be one of the iconic names ever, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And Bad Medicine.
Bad Medicine.
White out there. Connors was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. There was another Ford out there, Walking Tall. I always thought that was a cool name.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a red one from Missouri too at Walking Tall, and I remember the guy was 7 feet tall, in Louisville, and it was a beautiful tractor, and it ended up becoming the Keystone Cop, if you remember that, and that lady was a cop, I can't remember that guy's name from Missouri that had that tractor. And it was walking tall too, a red one.
Okay.
And remember the Keystone Cop getting put out in Louisville there, and that was a gorgeous tractor in the day.
Sure.
It
Absolutely.
was.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Melissa Meinholz writes, Vern pulled the 60-30 a couple times, brush pulling in Portage, and won both times he pulled it. The owner of the tractor asked him what he thought, and he said, "I'm hooked" for the 4320. So that's where Vern got his name. That's a good name. I had a pontoon boat I had called Hooked Up. Thought that was kind of cool, but that's Brian Barman's name of his tractor, so I couldn't use that one for my new one. So
Yep.
one of the older tractors I always thought was cool was Shotgun Red, and then Sneaky Snake. Those two tractors I always thought were, the coolest tractors. I didn't hardly ever see them other than Polar Magazine. Dad always got the Polar Magazine. And another one was Gangrene was Lance Little's. That's actually kind of where I got the idea of building my 4650 was Lance Little's first tractor he ever built was a 4650 called Gangrene, and he always had super nice looking John Deere tractors, and that's kind of where I got the idea of mine. But I always liked that name. And then his brother's tractor was called War Wagon originally back then.
Yep.
There's a lot of good old names. Dennis Schnichters was Black Savage, and Rodney Schnichters then was called White Trash. Dennis's was a black 1066, and Rodney's was a white, I think it was a 10. And they didn't look like much back then, but man, they'd almost beat you every time you pulled against them. I remember when my dad pulled against them guys, back then. So
yep.
But yeah,
you guys,
Mike, go ahead.
Go ahead. I can't read it. I was just gonna say read it because
Yeah, Mike Turner writes, my old NNS tractor got its name by Scott Zerzow because of one night he said that the thing has to be your wife's nightmare. He said that because I bought a chassis the week before our wedding, so the name kind of stuck. So it's wife's nightmare. Yeah, I could see that.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good one. And I always thought Mother's Nightmare. Brett Letterwood's tractor is a pretty good name.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Years ago, the very first time I ever pulled that Madness tractor was at Elkhorn, and I don't know if you guys were down there, but Mark Kohlberg was doing hole shots in the middle of that horse track, and his linkage stuck open. Do you remember that, Greg? Were you down there?
Nope, I don't remember that.
He went flying across that horse pen inside that center track. I am not kidding you, at 65 miles an hour. And it finally dawned on him, and he just turned the key off because, with the LP tractor, he cut the spark. Sure. And then I'm pretty sure he had to clean his shorts out too, Dustin, that time. But I remember getting off the tractor after the first time I ever went down the track, and I made a comment. Group of people were there that, boy, this is almost better than sex. And, I was thinking, boy, that'd be a kind of a neat name, name the tractor Better Than Sex. And then some old woman looks up at me and says, "Young man," he says, "you're not doing it right if it's better than sex." So, I guess got a point. Yeah, right. Well, that too. Yeah, at that time I probably didn't have any partner.
Yeah. Well, I always thought your name, Greg, didn't you always tell a story of the Thunder clutch? You were adjusting your clutch, or you did something different to the tractor, and you're out in front of the driveway and revving it up, and maybe the pump stuck that time too?
It did. Yep.
And
we put a computer on it, and it's supposed to engage at 3,000 RPM. So I just went on the driveway and I was revving it up to 3,000 RPMs. And I, dumbass, had my foot on the clutch and in gear. 3,000 RPMs, you could hold that. But then when the pump stuck, I couldn't push me right off, and it took off. And it didn't stop. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Never do that.
That was a bad deal. No, that was a bad deal.
Matt Castor wrote Cruising Mule and the Red Mule of
Bill Miller.
Bill Miller's.
Yep.
Or the Rooster. What was that? John Klug of Roost. Was that the Rooster?
Yeah,
Am I saying
that? Red.
Yep.
Was it the Red Rooster?
Or Red Baron?
Red.
Yeah,
that was
that's before my time. That's
yep.
but
Them are some older ones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I like.
So one of my favorite names today is the Checking Out Super Farm. I think it is. It's still a super farm.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. They own a funeral home, and the name of the tractor is called Checking Out. I think that's a really cool name.
That is a cool name.
Yep. Yep.
And until you know that story, you don't. I mean, it's just a cool name to begin with, and then it's kind of when I think the design on the side of that tractor kind of looks like a heartbeat,
Yep.
ticker tape, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense now after you know the story.
Sure. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. Some other classes, that I always thought were cool growing up. We always pulled Badger State and ITPA with Dad, but when you went down to ITPA, you got to see the modified tractors, and Bill Leishner with the Dirt Slinger. I always liked that name,
Yep.
A lot of good. And then I remember some 2-wheel drive trucks. I don't remember the names of the people that had them, but it was Rat Poison, Pink Floyd. There was a lot of old trucks and tractors with some pretty cool names, that just you remembered. It might not be something you name your own vehicle, but you remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
I always think about the old Mini called Pure Junk. That thing ran pretty good, and it looked like pure junk.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was fun, and
Gary Brinkmeyer's, Foolish Pleasure. That's kind of a iconic name over the years too that everybody knows. He played the words a little bit with foolish versus foolish, and everybody's got their own name that they started wanted to do, and it's there's not a bad one out there in my opinion.
Well, Mike Castor's tractor's teacher's pet,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And his wife was a teacher.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
There
was an Elky Super Stock too. They had a John Deere diesel super, and then they went to alcohol. I think that was a teacher name. Oh, I can't. Lauren, the Gettingers. Gettingers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't remember that name, but yeah, there's a lot of them, out there, and the newer ones are even, some of the newer tractors people are getting pretty creative with too. I'm drawing a blank right now. All the ones you see in Louisville or anywhere is that.
Sure. Yeah. My buddies from Milledgeville, Ben and Han and Pat Holmes, they call theirs dozing through. They Pat Holmes is an union operator by trade, and Ben Han has an excavating business and the road commissioner. So they had our buddy that's a good artist, take a spin on a 66 series hood and put it on like a D10 cat dozer, but make it red, and call it dozing through. So, that's a unique name that I guarantee nobody else has.
Right.
Yep.
Lessons learned was Gettingers.
Oh, yep, it was. Yep.
Yeah, because it had the math sign on it. That's right. It had like a chalkboard on it and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
Right.
Yep. Doug Ruth's tractors, the Ruthless Binders. That's a good name too. I think and you incorporated your name in it. Ruthless Binders. That's a good name, and I'm sure there's all kinds of them out there we're not thinking of and missing. That's why you guys say some if you get them. But there are some funny names out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to tell Mike Jelly, I should have got on here. He talked his tractor was going to be called Katie's Kitchen because his wife wanted a new kitchen, but they bought a tractor instead. But he didn't. He calls it Son of a Hitch.
Right.
Because they have some like too hot to farm tractors. Mike Everson and Mike Jelly and them guys pull against each other, and they're pretty serious about it. Well, Mike Jelly's takes off with it. He's going down the track. Well, his hitch broke off, and he just kept going proud as a peacock like he was winning the whole damn thing. And he turns around and he says, "Son of a hitch." He didn't use hitch, but
right.
So now his tractor's called Son of a Hitch. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, Wally Weezy with the Viagra King, one stiff competitor is always a good one.
Yep. That is probably
that makes me laugh all the time every time I see that.
And you can always see Wally laughing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one.
Yeah. Time for one
What
more.
you got under there, Dustin?
Time for one more of Josh Dutton's. That is a good one too. I like that a lot. You know.
That's a really good one too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I always said if I was from Indiana, mine would be called Who's Your Daddy?
Who's your daddy?
But
That'd be a good one too. Yeah.
Platteville Puffer. What the heck was his name? From man, that
I can
old
picture
guy,
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the guy that had the deer horns on the hood of his tractor?
No, he didn't.
I
God, the older guy used to flag for us once in a while. What was his name? God dang it.
Yeah, I know. I think he was friends with the Coateses or knew them well. I can't remember his name either. I got it at the top of my tongue, but I can't think of it. That was a good name. Dale Rupp, wasn't it?
Dale Rupp. Yep.
There you
Dale
go.
Rupp,
Yeah.
for sure. Yep.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. Now there's a pile of, a lot of tractors coming through the Badger State, that aren't all with us anymore. Some of the older classes, like that naturally aspirated class we used to have back in the day. What the heck was that guy that always wore the Hawaiian shirt, with the Minneapolis Molines? Remember him?
Stacey, I remember him too.
Stacy something. Matt probably remembers that one too. I'm terrible with that long ago, but he was always at every pull. He always wore a Hawaiian shirt, and he was down to party. I remember I was too young to be doing it then, but man, oh man, he had some interesting names on his tractors as well.
Yep. The other one was always neat was Sweet 16, Kevin King's tractor, 1650 Oliver, Sweet 16. That was a good name.
Yep.
Lindsey
Voss. There you go.
Yep.
Matt's got it. We should get him on here next time. He's the
rolling encyclopedia. He knows everything.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Schleppner, Mike Evers's tractor Schleppner, and if I remember right, a Schleppner is our Norwegian horse or something that's got like 8 legs. And he pulls a V8, so that's why it's called Schleppner.
Right.
I believe it's a horse that has 8 legs or something.
I think you're right on that as well. Not a lot of people know what that name means, but you are right on that. That's a unique name too. So
has Feller named his new tractor yet? Do you know?
Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
Yep. Because he's got a sound system in his trailer already that's going to rock the whole pit area. He's for Heavy Metal. He's in I don't know which bands or stuff. He goes to them all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that?
Trayton Malnori says, when I acquired my first mini rod, I decided to name it In the Red for obvious reasons. Last year, I switched motor builders to a family friend who used to pull a 4x4 truck. His truck was named Running in the Red. That used to pull back when I was younger. So it kind of feels like I'm continuing to carry the torch and keeping that name going. Yep.
Them are pretty cool. Yeah. Tom Gallant's is Running in the Red and Running Red Hot. That's pretty cool names too. Yep. In 4th generation, Lemke's tractor, that's been that forever, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Generation Plus. Yeah. Screaming Norwegian and Positive Ground, they said there. Mike Steffen says Propane. Yeah, Propane was a good one and kind of a true illustration of what that tractor might have been for Mark with all the, it ran good, but man, he had to have his A game together to keep that thing going down the track, in my opinion, with all the gadgets and stuff he had. Dick Ruff's Wound for Sound. Yeah, I remember that one.
That's a really good name for a V8 tractor too, Wound for Sound. Yeah. They do sound nice. Going down the track.
What is Stranley's mini rod name? Chicken on a leash. Chicken on a chain.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I've never heard him say why, but I know he told me one time started it, but I can't remember.
I think Kristen named it.
I think she did too, but it was, because he couldn't come up with anything, and she said that or something, right?
I believe She named it. I don't know the exact story, but I'm pretty sure she came up with it.
I think yeah. The other punky story for what he says why they call it Screaming Norwegian is somebody asked him, why do you call it Screaming Norwegian? Well, there's a lot of Norwegians around here and they're all screaming at each other. So that's why we call it Screaming Norwegian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Bleeding
Green.
Green.
Yep.
That's a good name. Yeah.
Yep.
Ryan, what would you name your tractor if you built one?
That's a good question. Well, one of my favorites growing up. Well, I was an Orange fan, so Young Blood for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Ceramics.
That's a good one.
Yep.
Always my favorite. My dad actually helped Bob Compton and Keith Durst pull the double dose back in the day. And that's actually aspirated class. My dad had to pull in the light class because Keith was too heavy.
Yep.
Okay.
And he had us that weekend. He would set us at the end of the track and then go down, pull, and pick us up at the end of the track, me and my sister. And we would ride with him back to the trailer.
Yep. Number memories from a long time ago. I remember all them.
Yeah. I barely remember them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The other, like Dennis Fry and Danny Fry's tractor, Agent Orange was a good
Agent
name.
Orange.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Before, the super stock guy from Indiana, he has the rooster or super rooster now. Oh, what the heck? Kent Payne, his pro stock. He used to pull pro stock way back when, and the name of his tractor was Different Strokes. I always liked the name of that one too. Yep. I think it was a 1456. A lot of good old pro stocks back in the day of Rampage and Die Hard. I always thought Wildman's names were cool. You know how they kept going with the Die Hard with a Vengeance and Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2, just like the movies.
Yep. Typin's tractor, Nightlife or Night Moves, Night Life, and then Carl Smith's I think was Night Moves, right?
Night Moves. Yep. Yeah.
My favorite green tractor as a kid was Mike Sarber's.
Oh,
Green Extreme. Yep.
That paint scheme was always
old Burkholz is mouthing off because he don't have a name on his tractor, Greg. Yep. So I think what you need to do is at the Children's Hospital poll, we could raffle off Burkholz's tractor for naming rights for the season, and he'd have to put on the side whatever the highest bidder comes up with.
There you go.
Right. Call it the Lucky Duck.
Yep.
Lucky Duck. I'm sure that that would get some bids.
It sure would.
Yep. Oh, yeah. We could do that. You up for that, Colin?
Hurricane Alice. That was a kind of an iconic name and vehicle in the early 2000s. Ace in the Hole. Yeah, Brandon.
Yep.
Brandon bought the component version of Ace in the Hole and turned it into Fuel in the Fire. And I actually drew the picture of that deer on the side of that tractor, if you believe that or not. That I kind of have some art, skills, and he asked me to draw that on there. I like the name of his tractor. Sam Kendall says "Money Grows in Rows."
Yeah,
that was a good one. That was Smithback's Pro Stock. That was Wildman's tractor before.
Yep.
Yeah, Family Feud was up there a little bit ago.
Okay.
The Haymaker.
That just got sold.
Yep.
Yeah, the Haymaker was a cool name and had a really cool paint scheme. One of the coolest I think ever.
Right. It's still out there.
They still use that same paint scheme out in Ohio.
Yeah, Deppens out in Ohio still have the tractor.
Bollinger's in Illinois with the money pit. That's about as fitting for any pulling tractor, any class as it gets.
Right.
Oh,
and then they have Top Gun, which for the Allisons.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's a cool name too.
Of course, the Green Monster.
Well, how are we going to judge this to see who has the best name? Do we have? How do we do this? You know,
You're the one that came
well,
up
I
with this
mean,
contest.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Do we
I
have
think
to
you
have
put
guys submit them, or what do you think?
that, or you put a poll question out there and give it a day or two, and whoever gets the highest vote
there you go.
wins.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do that. You want to do that, Ryan? Just put it on Facebook and name the. If you know, it doesn't have to be one out there. Just name it and see how many people like that. Name the best. I guess I don't know. However you want to do it.
Sure.
Well, Burkholz is doing it.
Yep. I don't see why not.
So at the children's poll, we're gonna have an auction to for a name for Burkholz.
Yep.
And
Yep.
all proceeds go to the children's hospital, and he has to call his tractor that name for the season.
Yep. And Greg gets to draw the side panel, not you, Dustin. We're going to use Greg's artwork on the side of that baby.
Oh, that won't be
Okay.
Greg's artwork.
It can't be any worse than that Mongo one that's always at Gordyville.
Oh, that's
Right.
a fan favorite.
Yep, I'm
Here
sure it
comes
is. That's
Mongo.
pretty cool.
Lisa Beatty writes, our AC D21 flirting with disaster. Molly Hatchet song. Lots of lyrics are a true testament for our build, and in true fashion. And when we were on the dyno, it blew a turbo on the first pass and started on fire. Got that fixed and started on fire again during the next dyno pass. Yeah, that's definitely flirting with disaster.
For sure.
I remember. Again, I always go back to the old school pro stock things because that's what I remember. But Carl Merzinski from Southern Illinois had a tractor called Flirting with Disaster a few years there. And he retired it. Oh, I mean, I bet you it's been 30 years ago. He quit pulling, you know. But I guess
Who
I'm
had
getting
Thumper?
old already.
Sonny
Snyder?
Snyder.
Sonny
Yep.
Snyder. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
good name too.
Yeah.
Thumper.
Like
Yeah,
the old
Thomas Wright.
the old Pro Fox. I wonder how that name ever came about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thomas Wright says either Larry Shope with the Iron Dragon or Ed Islandfield with Nameless. One forgot a side shield and put the other ones on it down the track. That was at the Buck in Pennsylvania in 2008 or 2009. And the running joke was it was now the Nameless Dragon. Well, that's a good story. I never heard that one.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. Yep.
Yeah.
The Pro Fox should have really been called the Firefox because I think it caught fire most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
No Fear Deer. I mean, I know we're partial to the Badger State tractors, but that's a good one.
No,
What was the name
Yep.
of that when Lonnie Kramer owned it, Greg? Do you remember? Did he
I
have a
do
name on
not.
it?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either. Brian Cruz
Don't remember.
writes Cheezix Just Blowing Smoke. That was his pro stock. That was a good name. I like that one too.
Yep. Yep. That was a really good one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You know what I like those the story behind it, why you named it that. You know, if it's a thing. You know, I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If we can get them out there somehow.
Sure.
You know. But yeah. There's a lot of good names out there. We can't, you know, trucks and, you know, the one that used to Dale Bonds, what was his truck named? New Yorker up there. He had a strip club called the New Yorker in Mosinee. So his truck was a strip, strip club name. And I'll never forget the first time for people that don't know, Mike Chastain passed away here a couple weeks ago. And, the first time ATPA came up to, you know, we met with them down in Illinois, and then a few months later they came up to propose to our board of directors and some other clubs around the state here was at the New Yorker in Mosinee. And Mike was out on the stage giving his speech, and it was at the end. We were done. You know, we were done listening to it, and all of a sudden the girls were behind him, and everybody started cheering. Well, Mike thought they were cheering for him. There were some girls behind him doing their job, you know. And he turned around, oh, geez, I see why you guys are all cheering. He said, that was funnier than heck. Yeah.
I think I was at church that day.
You probably were.
Yeah.
You probably were. It snowed like a foot.
I remember that.
Home.
Yep, I do remember that.
Yep.
Derek Schweiger wrote Preparation H. That was Tom Harmon's green and red pro stock.
Remember he lost that bet one time and he had to paint it green. He said, if I get beat by John Deere, I'm going to paint it green.
Yeah.
You know, so it was all 1 year it was green. And then the next year his paint job was like going down, flying through the air and the green paint flying off it. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Blue Smoothie Express. That that was a good truck. That's a diesel truck.
Yep. Jamie Lars.
Yep.
See, well, that was one of the names. Blue Bayou was one of the names I was going to use for my tractor too. But it was already used in trucks, and somebody else already had it for a tractor, so I didn't do that. But that's a cool name, Blue Bayou.
Those are super farms too.
Yeah, Mark Schultz and Andy Keys have those, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So,
yeah.
But it started with a 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive truck, I think, right?
I don't know. I just know they've always had it as long as I remember, like up here.
Yeah. Yeah, there was Sean Sauer says, wasn't Snyder's Road Farmer Pro Stock named after he worked at the county or something? Yeah, that wasn't Sonny Snyder. That was what the heck was his first name? He had a John Deere called the Road Farmer.
What wasn't it? Scott, I think, from like Pennsylvania or something like that, right?
He was Eastern.
I think Ohio.
And probably one of the more fitting ones too is old Russell Hildebrand with the loose cannon.
Yeah,
that guy just makes me crack up every time I see a video.
Yep. He does a good job. He and his wife put a lot of information on Facebook. If
it's awesome.
What they're doing.
Yep,
it's pretty neat.
Yep.
And he used to drag race Harley Davidsons.
Right.
Fuel Harleys, and then he did well back in the day.
Yeah. Blaine Stam's Stampede.
Yep.
That was
Blaine Stampede is a good one. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna vote, my vote goes to Craig's. Honestly, not just because you're on here, because you have the best story. I mean, everybody's got a cool name that goes with I don't know, a character or whatever. But your story is definitely the best. In my opinion.
Yep.
But yeah,
it's a life-changing story, Craig. Even you said if you changed that one guy's life and he didn't try, and then all of a sudden he did, I hope it works out for him.
Right. I mean, so many people. I mean, Dustin, you had that young man, and I'm going to forget his name. He was in a wheelchair. He passed away now.
Yeah.
He always just, what was his name?
His name was Jeff Cleaver.
Jeff Cleaver. Yep. And I just remember he'd come by or you'd come by with him, and just to see the tractor and now there was another young man from Richland Center area. He had an unfortunate accident, and I don't care if I got to give all my T-shirts away for free to those families and team shirts and all that. I mean, that makes my day.
Yeah.
Yep.
If we didn't have the fans, we wouldn't be able to even do what we were doing. So
nope. And it's as stupid as this investment is in these tractors. I wouldn't trade it for the world because it's just unexplainable what it's done for me and my family and all of us involved. I mean, we're lifelong friends, and we all decided to get in this goofy sport of tractor pulling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're in Louisville. Byrne was able to come home from the hospital last week, slow and steady on his recovery, and he's committed to making the River Rumble happen on July 24th. So most likely it will.
Awesome.
Well,
good to hear.
Sounds like some guys are getting behind him to help. Talk to Pat Hack this week, and he's going to go help, and Dan Durst, I think, and a few other guys are going to make it happen for Byrne. Yep.
Awesome.
That's good.
Yep.
Awesome.
So going back to Louisville now, our tractor's been in the show 2 years, out in the equipment part of it. And this same young man has come up to me both times, and he's fighting health issues too. And, and it made me feel good that I could give him a T-shirt or whatever, and he's just excited to see. Stood in line. I mean, past 5 o'clock, we're supposed to be out there. We had a line the first year of people, started at 3 o'clock, and we thought we'd just go over there for half an hour and do a meet and greet. Well, it turned out to be quite a few people. There was in the line, and I could see this kid down there, and I wanted to get to him, and so we had it worked out. It was fun, but just like you, Craig, you see these kids, and they're excited to see you and meet you, and Emily mostly, but it's fun to to do that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot.
Are you putting Emily on the? Are you putting Emily behind the steering wheel this year, Greg?
Yeah, when the tractor's not running.
So is it?
She's on oil plug duty.
Right. She's on oil. She's got to make sure the oil plug stays in every time.
All right. Well, maybe you can give her the zip tie to make sure the zip tie's on the kill switch too.
Right.
Yeah. Little angry. Absolutely nuts. Those are some good ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to ask you,
Little
Greg.
angry
Yeah. If the Emily and the boys get, what is it, 100,000 likes or 50,000, that millennial farmer's going to drive your tractor? Wasn't that a thing last year at Louisville? No. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember what it was.
He
You'll have
wasn't
to
in
ask
that
me
meeting.
tomorrow. Maybe I'm
he
wrong
can drive
on
their
that.
tractor.
Okay, there you go.
I thought it was always interesting. I offered. You guys know who Donnie Schatz is? He's a sprint car racer, World of Outlaws.
Yep.
He's a 10, 12-time world champ, national champ, and we have a mutual friend. And they were at Plymouth Racetrack last summer, and I went up to him and I actually offered the seat of my tractor for him to take down the track. And he looks right at me and he says, "Absolutely effing not." He says, "You guys are nuts." And I'm thinking, this is coming from a multi-time national champ sprint car racer. He thinks we're crazy, and I there's no way I would ever do what he does.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
You always think you can do it until you go do it, right? Then
Absolutely.
You know yeah.
Sure.
And a lot of us make it look easy because we've done it forever.
Yep. That's what you're used to.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, guys, look for the post on the Badger State Facebook page, right, Ryan?
Yeah, we'll put
Yeah.
a poll out, and I think what we'll do is if you're on the voting of the winning entry, then those people get in the drawing for the gift card. That makes
There you
sense.
go.
And we gotta get working on our artwork and naming rights for Burkholz's tractor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. We'll have
Right.
to start pushing that.
Yep.
Good.
Yep. What we'll do is we'll see if the kids at the Children's Hospital can help name the tractor too.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yep. So a lot of people don't know that.
Oh.
Usually the T-shirt we sell, the kids at the Children's Hospital draw the picture of it sometimes.
Mhm.
Yep.
I'd put that on the side of my tractor if a kid wanted to do that.
Yep.
That's an honor.
Yeah, there you go. That's maybe we should come up with a post for Facebook for that idea, and as long as Collins and his dad are okay with it, that might be a pretty big hit.
That might be. Yep. So yeah, we have the family picked out for the Children's Hospital again. I'm not going to say it right now, but it's part of the Badger State family again. People that come to a lot of events with us, so
good.
It'll be interesting again. I mean, we don't have to look far to find a family that the American Family Children's Hospital affects. So
no.
And, that'll be good. So I guess that's our hour. I seen it just clicked. I want to thank Slom Enterprises, Eric Wettenkamp, Front Street Toys, and Trip Downing again for all their support and help with us. And hopefully next week we're trying to line up. What's the guy's name? Chris Feller's helping us out with the guy from Southern Illinois Crank. Tonight his show is on How Do They Make It or whatever it is, or how do they do that show? The show is on tonight about his Southern Illinois Crank. So next week we're going to try and get him on the show and show some of the clips from the video they do.
Oh, cool.
How do they make that?
Like that? Is it the one that's like on Discovery? Is it Discovery that does how it's made? Is that the one?
Yep. How it's made. It's on Discovery. So that'd be a neat one to see. Hopefully we'll get him on and Machine and a Crank. That's what our plan is, but best laid plans, right?
Right.
We fly by the seat of our pants with this too often, but that's once in a while we get something like that done.
Yep.
So
everybody be safe. I know there's bad tornado warnings and stuff out there all over the state of Wisconsin tonight, so be safe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, thanks, Craig and Dustin, for coming on, and appreciate having you guys on all the time. Makes the show go.
Yeah. Anytime.
Yep.
All right.
You
Yep,
bet.
thank you guys.
Have a good night. You bet.
Yep, see you later.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.